Officer DuFresne. I have reached Blood Gulch Outpost Alpha. Do you read?
When we return to Blood Gulch for Season 2, 3 months have passed, and a medic arrives to answer the call for wounded. It's here that we get introduced to medic Frank Doc DuFresne, voiced by Matt Hullum, and Vic from Command, voiced by Burnie Burns. After getting his directions, he makes his way to Blue Base, where things have gotten, well, weird. Caboose has been talking in a weird voice and making threats toward Tucker, and Chuch is still in Lopez's body and has painted it blue and managed to fix it so that he can speak English. It turns out Doc is here to answer the medic call for Tex, who is dead, and is apparently Jewish. The Reds begin an assault, and for a minute things for the Blues look bleak, until the Reds run out of ammunition and decide to simply barter for a surrender/trade. Doc is sent over to the Reds, which works out well for him because that's where he was going to go anyway, and the Blues get, well...
I would just like to let everyone know that I suck. And that I'm a girl. What else? And I like ribbons in my hair. And I want to kiss all the boys.
Grif making an idiot out of himself. With that distraction gone, Chuch and Tucker are left to wonder about the secrets Lopez's body holds for them. Tucker discovers a switch near Chuch's crotch region that seems to hold some interest. He flips it, but only seems to receive a strange beeping noise. At Red Base, Sarge reveals that pretty much everything vital to the success of Red Team was stored inside Lopez, including control over their Jeep's machine gun turret that can fire upward of 1,000 rounds per minute. The same turret that is activated when Tucker hits the switch. Okay, I have a few questions. 1. Why would you put all of your plans and accesses to dangerous weapons in one robot? 2. Why would you put all of your plans and accesses to dangerous weapons in one robot that did not have a speech unit? 3. Why did you put all of your plans and accesses to dangerous weapons in one robot that when it did get a speech unit, it speaks in a language that none of you fucking understand? Who gave this man a promotion? What are his credentials? Because it only gets worse from here. It's like he comes up with these elaborate plans that could potentially work, but he always deliberately leaves out that one step that is actually the most important step in the process, thus screwing himself out of any potential victory and prolonging events even further than they need to be. Well, I hope it was worth it, because now you're pinned to the wall by your own vehicle, which should have crushed your spinal column and paralyzed you from the waist down, and that turret that can fire upwards to 1,000 rounds per minute is about to give company to the single bullet that is already residing in your dumb head. Fortunately for him, and unfortunately for me, Tucker manages to cut the wire and spare Sarge's life. Even more unfortunate is that this act leaves Chuch unable to move his legs, effectively paralyzing him from the waist down. The Reds bring Doc back over to the Blues because, let's be honest, Doc is about as useful as a nun on a porn shoot, but Blues want nothing to do with him. So they dump him out in the middle of the canyon to die alone and forgotten until the end of time. At least, that's their hope. So with no real way to get the body moving, Chuch steps out of it for a second and... Wait, what? Now it can walk? What was keeping it from walking before?
Why do you care about your body? You can't even move your... Oh, hey, look, your legs work.
I mean, it's not like those wires were connected to Chuch's spirit form. They were a part of the robot body. Just because Chuch steps out doesn't mean the wires automatically reattach themselves and the body can walk, unless Lopez knows something that we don't. Lopez takes off running towards Red Base with Blue Team in hot pursuit. The Reds, mistaking him to be a Blue, open fire on him, causing his head wires to fry or something because he feels betrayed, and activates the Warthog self-destruct because he still has the power to do that because the Reds are still idiots. And he defects to the Blues without even understanding that he has been painted blue or listening to Red's explanation. Really, who gives a shit? Back at Red Base, with no robot to use to repair their vehicle, Sarge decides to make a new one. But instead of simply buying a new robot building kit, because why do something that would make sense, he decides he's going to turn one of his men into a partial cyborg. Because, you know, that won't go poorly. Where does this guy think up of this stuff? Why does he automatically think towards turning one of his men into a partial C-3PO? What makes him think he even can? Like, I'm pretty sure you need to have gone to medical school a little bit, because it's a little more complicated than just simply moving some organs around. Back at Blue Base, Lopez fixes Shiela, and love starts to blossom between the two bots. Really, really awkward love. What kind of babies do you think they would have? No, seriously, this is a legitimate question. What would the sex even be like? Would you try talking dirty to the tank in Spanish? What would that come off as? El bebé que mi pegue en el tubo de escape. Todas las chicas que aman a su casa. Weird. In an effort to make this scene slightly less awkward, Chuch attempts to repossess Lopez, but finds he is blocked by...
Well, buenos dias, cockbites. Guess who's back?
Ah, crap. Tex tells them of how in the minutes before her death, the AI in her head calculated her chances of survival, figured out they were shit, and jumped ship the first chance it got. But apparently it can only travel through helmet communication links, so when Caboose radioed Chuch at the end of last season, the AI possessed him and began calling himself O'Malley. She comes up with a plan. Drive O'Malley out of Caboose's head while Tucker gets the Reds and everyone else to turn off their helmet mics, thus locking the AI in open air and leaving it to die. How is it Blue Team can come up with sound, logical plans that can actually work, but Red Team can't even make breakfast without either turning one of their men to a cyborg or shooting one in the face with a shotgun? It must be because the Blues have a woman on their team, and women know how to get shit done. So Chuch and Tex hop into Caboose's mind, and, well, it's something. The inside of Caboose's mind to this day remains one of the more intriguing aspects of the show, and it only gets looked at 3 times in the show's run. We see how Caboose views the world, how he views people. It's a very interesting glimpse into how one views the world. It makes you wonder, how does everybody see the world, or what kind of things go on in someone's mind? For instance, if I were to go into Tucker's mind, could we theoretically conjure up the Playboy Mansion and have a cocaine-induced orgy with Hugh Hefner and the ladies there? Back in the real world, Donut and Grif are looking around the Warthog for some equipment for the upcoming robotic transplant bullshit surgery. This is the moment when Donut really starts to be purely for the gay jokes. There were a few before, but it's this moment that always stuck out in my mind as Donut becoming the more effeminate butt of the gay jokes character, which can be a little mixed at times. There are some funny jokes in there, but more so I think than with any other character, they really drive those gay jokes into the ground to die of asphyxiation. But Tucker, Lopez, and Shiela show up and end up crashing straight into the Warthog and blowing Grif sky high while Donut runs away. Tucker communicates to the Reds to turn off their mics, but Sarge, being the stubborn jackass that he is, refuses. While they're doing that, O'Malley fires upon Chuch and Tex and kills Caboose's mind's version of Chuch, causing Caboose to temporarily forget who Chuch is. The two run after and corner O'Malley, and after brief negotiations, shoot him to death. On the outside, with no other option, Tucker resorts to one final option. Having Lopez sing a love song to Shiela over the radios. This awkward love song that I imagine sounds just as sappy and terrible in its original language as it does in its English translation, and coming from a monotone robotic voice, it's enough to make even my singing voice sound appealing in comparison. To the Reds, it's the most ear-shattering thing they've ever heard, except Donut, who thinks it sounds terrific, and they all turn off their mics as O'Malley is forced out of Caboose's head. As it floats into the atmosphere, unable to hop to a new helmet, it slowly turns itself off to die, with no host for it to take on.
Come in, Blue Command. You read me.
Except for the one guy in the canyon that everyone forgot about. Now you'd think that'd be the season finale, but no, we've still got a couple more episodes left to go. Grif wakes up after the incident, and apparently he already had his mic off, otherwise I don't know why O'Malley didn't go straight for him, to find that the robotic operation was successful. Simmons is now part cyborg, and Grif has inherited some of his lesser needed organs, although, considering the body needs all the organs... Oh, fuck it. This joke doesn't make a whole lot of sense, considering they drop it at the beginning of next season and pretty much never revisit it. I mean, it gets a brief mention later on down the line, but for all intents and purposes, it goes nowhere and means nothing. You could have replaced it with just about any other plot point and it would have made about as much sense. In fact, this is rendered even more useless by the fact that apparently Lopez not only holds the controls for the Warthog, but also apparently holds the plans in order to defeat the Blues. And once again, I have to be the voice of reason and ask why you put all your plans in a robot you can't understand. Although, apparently this was Command's fault, so maybe they just like fucking with him. Back at Blue Base, Shiela and Lopez are getting fed up with their treatment because apparently even robots and tank AI take offense to getting blown up and possessed by otherworldly entities on a daily basis, and have decided to break off and form their own faction. Grif and Donut are sent to spy on the Blues, but Grif tells Donut to fuck off and get closer to sea. Donut ends up in a cave that Doc is in and finds him talking to himself, but really it's just O'Malley in his body sounding like your stereotypical Bond villain. Donut freaks and runs, making his way to Blue Base, where he is then captured.
I think this is what they call the calm before the storm. I call it nap time, which is right before food time. And then comes food nap time.
It's here that Caboose finally crosses the line into complete moron. Up until now, he was still comprehensible, if very unintelligent, but from here on in, it's like he exists in his own little world. He reverts almost to that of an innocent child, and it's probably because of that he's one of the more popular characters in the series. Chuch strikes a deal that they'll return Donut and Lopez to the Reds, as long as the Reds build 2 new robot bodies, one for Chuch and one for Tex. Sarge agrees to it, but with a twist. One robot has a mic in order to spy on the Blues that I don't remember if they ever utilize or not, and the other holds, are you ready for this? A 10 megaton nuclear bomb. Well, of course. Okay, how the fuck did he get the supplies to build a 10 megaton nuclear bomb? How did he build it? How did he not get radiation poisoning from it, unless the suits are designed to resist against that? This baffles me, it really does. What kind of an engineering degree does this man possess, and where did he get it from? Why the fuck does he have random plutonium particles just strewn around Red Base? Is there a single thing about this that is supposed to make sense? I can't. The man, the same idiot that could build a nuclear device capable of wiping out an entire first world country is the same moron that makes his password password. Alright, I've dragged on too long. Both teams meet in the middle of the canyon along with Shiela and Lopez acting on their own. Chuch possesses the body containing the nuclear device. Sarge tries to call in an airstrike, but Tucker, who is still patched into the Reds' mics, overhears it. And turns out that Vic from Blue Command is also Red Command in some weird conspiracy bullshit thing. Tucker tries to stop the fighting, but is blown away by O'Malley/Doc, who is flying around in a ghost. O'Malley grabs Lopez and escapes through the Reds' teleporter. The group have a discussion about irony for no real reason other than that's funny and people really tend to confuse irony a lot, and agree to go through the teleporter after them, leaving Donut, Tucker, and Shiela behind. Tex returns in the other robot body and recognizes Donut as the one who kills her. It turns out that O'Malley sabotaged the teleporter, separating the team into 3 groups. Chuch and Grif end up on Sidewinder and are imprisoned by the Reds still stationed there. Sarge and Caboose end up in some creek, and Simmons ends up in a room full of teleporters. And that's how the season ends, with all of them separated across different areas. That's season 2 right there. To be honest, it's not a particularly memorable season, even though this is the season that really kind of gets the ball rolling. The characters by this time have really started to become the characters we know them as today, specifically so Donut and Caboose, and camera work and especially audio have already begun to improve. It's also during this season as well that the crew really started to focus on Red vs. Blue full time, and the makings of Rooster Teeth began during this season. No longer was it just a few guys dicking around in a bedroom. Now we were starting to really get into the seeds of what would eventually become one of the biggest online companies of all time. And season 3 would only push that even farther.